Hello, I'm Lonnie.
I'm Amberlicious.
We're Untitled Network. This is our review for the fourth episode of Rick and Morty's fifth season. This one,
Okay, can I just give my initial thoughts right now?
okay.
This was some of the stupidest shit I have ever watched on Rick and Morty, but it was so fucking funny. Like, it was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous comedy, and you expect a certain thing to happen this entire episode, and it doesn't. That's what that's what made it the funniest. Oh my god.
Okay, so now that we've thrown the little spoiler thing out there,
Yes.
if you have not watched episode 5, this one is called Rickdependence Spray. And, God. Okay, so basically, the entire story is launched from, like, the opening scene before the credits roll. And Morty is having to go to work. I guess Beth is getting ready to take Morty to go see Black Widow. And they don't explicitly say Black Widow, but she basically calls it, like, the latest Marvel bullshit that...
You guys are jizzing over.
Yeah, the kids are going crazy. And it was funny.
What? Imagine using those words and then watching the rest of the show. Jizzing.
Yes, 100%. So she leaves Morty in this room, and of course, you know, Beth is a like a horse surgeon, but they have they have this machine in there that it basically collects horse semen. It's like a horse vagina that pumps it, and you know, I guess they let
They
the
collect
horse.
the horse semen.
Yeah.
Yada yada yada.
And so Morty sees this thing and is like, "Whoa!" And so
Like a normal teenage boy.
yeah. And so, like, after the credits and everything, Rick just so happens... Now, this is where it kind of starts, and you're like, okay, they're building to something here. And,
Right.
you know, Rick always wants to teach Morty a lesson, you know.
Every time he always knows what Morty has done because he's really smart and he knows Morty well, and he can pretty much predict anything that Morty's gonna do.
Yep.
Without even trying.
So this episode, and you've seen it happen so many times. And so when we were watching this, my thought was like, okay, we're building up to like the big reveal that, you know, Rick is just
Rick
gonna
knew all the time.
yeah.
Yada yada
And
yada.
so we get to okay, so basically what happens is Rick, they've got he's trying to create a bioweapon to use against these underground horse people who are called the Chuds. And they live underground. Apparently they've had a centuries-long war with humans that we're just now finding out about. But they're, you know,
Right.
it's some of that background stuff that apparently they talk about all the time. We've just never seen it. And so...
Yeah, because it implies that the characters know all this.
Yeah. And
President and everything knows this.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so Rick like runs all this crazy power through some horse semen. Of course, at that point, you know, Rick says something along the lines of, you know, this will work just fine as long as it's just horse semen. And they start laying the groundwork, you know, like, okay, Rick's saying this because he knows that, you know, Morty, you know, there's Morty semen in this.
He's trying to get him to crack.
Yeah. And, like, that just happens, and it escalates and escalates and escalates. And then finally it's revealed, Morty admits it, and Rick is like, oh my god, I can't believe you did this. Like, he had no clue that this was going on.
Nobody even thought that he did some shit like that.
But all of the dialogue and everything was made in such a way that it sounded like everybody was like, oh, Morty, we know you always tell the truth. Come here and shoot straight with me. And yeah, it's just, and I guess they do a good job of putting you in Morty's shoes because you feel like that same pressure that he does.
Yeah.
And
yeah, they made the storyline match on what it is like to build around a small lie. They did that excellent, you know. You see that a lot in shows, and especially like kids shows. It starts out with one tiny little lie,
yeah.
and it just escalates.
Now, okay, they did a really good job of putting you in Morty's shoes, but let's say they eliminated the before the credits scene and took away any knowledge that you had that Morty had done that.
I would have known.
How would the episode have played out differently?
It wouldn't have played out differently.
I mean, how would the episode have...
For me?
Yeah.
I would have known he was fucking lying. Look how nervous he was acting. Of course, he acts nervous all the time.
Not so much anymore, though.
That's true. He doesn't act near as nervous as he used to, and he was in this episode.
He was back to, like, season 1 levels of anxiety.
Like, oh, yeah.
Well, it just kept getting worse, kept getting worse. What was funny is they had this, like, really kick-ass, like, Asian assassin on the Marines team. Because they end up... Basically, what happens is when Rick runs the power through this, it creates, like, a race of, like, super giant, like...
Space sperm.
Space sperm, yeah.
It.
And they spent, like, the whole time trying to figure out names for them and all this. And there were a lot of really fucked up jokes in this one. Because there was a point where, like, the sperm are trying to go to Vegas, and...
Because of Summer's idea that the president didn't want to give her credit for it.
Yeah, so not only did the president not want to give her credit for it, but they take one of, like, Summer's eggs and blow it up into, like, a really big version to attract all the sperm. Well, come to find out, they didn't know it, but the sperm were Morty's. And, like, the little...
Yeah, that's when he confessed. It's mine. It's going to be incest.
He had, like a goofy sperm, one that was, like, wrong. It had, like, 2 tails, and it actually had 1 eyeball and a kind of a goofy-looking tooth and all. You know, you could tell it was kind of like a...
An off-chromosome one.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
And so, it helps Morty, because Morty helps it, and it realizes, hey, this is Morty. This is where I came from. And so Morty becomes friends with it, and it ends up killing the, like, sperm queen. Like, it was just like the Borg queen from Star Trek First Contact. But it was like the sperm queen, and it ends up saving the day. But then it fertilizes Summer's egg and gets blasted into space.
God.
And so, at that point, I'm like, what the... I mean, it was already kind of weird enough seeing Beth and Summer ride Morty's sperm into Vegas.
Right.
Like, that was a weird scene. And I don't like... There was like a...
I like how they commented in this episode on women's rights.
Oh, yeah. There was
That's not something they usually address. They address a lot of things in Rick and Morty, social commentary-wise. But, like, they stay away from women's subjects a lot. I guess because, you know, the men are creators.
Well, the only time I've ever really noticed that they did anything in regards to, like, women in like, a direct way was the Story Train episode where Morty told the story using the Bechdel test and, you know, the whole, you know...
Yes.
You know, fight the scorpions with your special time.
Right, yeah.
I think that was just, like, more I think that right there was a commentary more on, like, how 14-year-old boys view women. Like, that's a really good observation.
Yeah. But when Summer had the idea of, hey, just put a big egg out there to attract them, they're like, what? And then their specialist that happened to be a man said it in a different way.
And they were like, hey, that's a good idea.
Great idea.
You're going to get a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, I gave him a Nobel Prize. And Beth says to Summer, congratulations, you're a woman. And that's literally one of the rites of passages as a woman. So.
Sad state of affairs in the world today.
And then they used her egg and said, well, she could at least contribute something.
And then it totally backfired. Now, we apparently
totally backfired.
Now we have a weird giant incest baby floating through space.
All because that egg had a heartbeat. It was election
time. That was true.
Election time. They wouldn't let them kill the egg because it had a heartbeat.
That was also a commentary on the world affairs today. Yeah. Like, nobody truly gives a shit in Washington, but they do it just because it panders. And I'm just like, oh god, the world is so fucked. But anyway, this was one of the craziest, yet in my opinion, most entertaining episodes. Like, how are you gonna rate this one? I'm dying to know.
I'm gonna give it a 10.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a 10. It was a fun little episode. There wasn't a whole lot of character development. You know, there was a little bit with Beth and Summer, but that's it. It was a really funny episode. It was a really funny episode to be just really a filler episode.
Yeah.
I was impressed. But it also wasn't like 11 because it, didn't really further along any particular storyline.
It didn't have like any earth-shattering
but
developments.
But this would be a good like introduction episode, really.
Yes.
I think because the only thing you really need to know is Morty's always doing fucked up stuff and getting caught, and then he has to actually confess in this episode.
This is just Morty being a teenager.
Yeah.
Is 100% what this was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also shows that regardless of whether he spends time with his family or spends time with Rick, things are going to get fucked up.
I would watch this episode again.
Yeah.
This is going to be a favorite of mine for a long time.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm going to give this one a 10 as well. The only reason this did not get an 11 is because it lacked a big movement in a direction or a big overall arc changing thing. But otherwise, this is a fantastic go-to episode now. Whenever I'm sitting around at 2 o'clock in the morning and want something to watch, this is going to be one of them. And this is probably the best 10 episode. Like, if there's like 5 or 6 episodes that I've rated a 10, this is the closest to the 11.
Yeah.
Great episode. I loved it. Like it was just one constant funny joke after another.
It really was.
And like the cringy parts were super funny, and it was just a fun episode.
Yeah.
It was just fun.
The cringy parts weren't so cringy that you were like, oh god. But it was enough oh god to make you laugh.
Well, it's funny too because I love a good incest joke, and this was full of them, and I was just like,
no, it really wasn't full of that many incest jokes.
Well, the third act was pretty heavy. The first two wasn't. It's like if you split it into 3 parts, but yeah.
If you split this little bitty episode in 3 parts.
Fantastic episode. Yeah. That's what they are. They're always like an act 1 and act 2 and an act 3.
Whatever you want to say, Lonnie.
So, okay.
Let's end this. Please.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there thinking about it now. It's funny. Freaking great episode. All right. Well, it's funny because we're recording these out of order. We actually.
God, you can't stand but to mention it.
Well, I do. I want to let everybody know what's going on behind the scenes in a way. Like we weren't able to do the review on episode 4. So we're going to rewatch it and do an episode. But I think I'm actually going to release these in order, like the way they were supposed to be. So.
Oh, man, I thought that was the plan.
Regardless. But just let everybody know what's going on. But anyway, I'm Lonnie.
I'm Amberlicious.
We are Untitled Nerd Network. We'll see y'all next time. I don't know if they're splitting season 5 into 2 parts. Like two sets of 5 like they did. Or if we're going to get 10 episodes right in a row. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I'm probably going to have to look into that. But anyway, we'll see y'all next time.